Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a world where your social status is set in stone, and trust me, you probably won't survive a day there. Imagine waking up in a dusty village, the air thick with the smell of firewood and livestock, and realizing you're in feudal China. You're not a time traveler with a gadget to zap you back, you're stuck, and the rules here are brutal. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always cool to see where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a bustling marketplace surrounded by the chatter of vendors haggling over bolts of silk and the sharp scent of spices mingling with livestock musk. You're disoriented, rubbing sleep from your eyes, but as you take in the wooden stalls and the sea of people in flowing robes, it hits you you're in ancient China. Let's peg it at 1400, smack in the Ming Dynasty, a time when the empire's humming along with a rigid class system that about to dictate your every move. In this world, your social class isn't just a label, it's a cage. It decides what you wear, where you sleep, who you can even look at without getting a stern glare or a swift punishment. At the top sits the emperor, the son of heaven, lounging in the forbidden city with golden roofs and more rules than you can count. Below him are the nobility, think land-owning elites with fancy titles, and the scholar officials, the brainy bunch who've clawed their way up through the imperial examinations. These exams are no joke years of studying Confucian classics, writing essays that could bore a statue, and enduring test days that last longer than a modern Netflix binge. Pass and your set silk robes a government gig, and respect dripping from every nod. Fail, and you're back to square one, probably crying into your ink-stained scrolls. Next come the farmers, the unsung heroes of this society. You might be one of them, and if so, your life's a grind. In theory, you're revered because you feed the nation, but in practice, you're up before the roosters, trudging to the fields with a wooden plow that's seen better days. If you're lucky, an ox pulls it. If not, it's all you shoulders straining as you dig into the stubborn earth. The sun's relentless, turning your tunic into a sweat-soaked rag by noon. You break for a handful of rice wrapped in a leaf, maybe some pickled radish if the harvest was kind, then it's back to work. At dusk, you stumble home to a mud-walled hut where your wife's stirring a pot of millet porridge over a smoky fire. Your kids are asleep on straw mats, and you're too beat to do anything but eat and crash. Taxes take half your crop, and a bad season could mean hunger or worse. Maybe you're an artisan instead, like a potter hunched over a spinning wheel. The workshop's a haze of clay dust, the kiln's heat prickling your skin as you shape a vase that might end up in a noble's house. Your hands are rough, your fingernails caked with earth, but there's a quiet pride in your craft. Still, you're a step below the farmers in the pecking order, and no matter how good your work is, you're not climbing higher without a miracle. Or perhaps you're a merchant, jingling coins in your pouch from trading silk along the Yellow River. You've got cash, sure, but respect not a chance. Scholars sneer at you, calling you a leech for profiting off others' labor. Here's a quirky tidbit in some eras. You're banned from wearing silk, even if you're the one selling it. Talk about irony. You're stuck on the bottom rung, envied for your wealth but shunned for your trade. And if you're a woman, oof, your options shrink fast. You're likely at home weaving cloth or tending a tiny garden patch, while the men call the shots. Education's a pipe dream, unless you're born into rare privilege, and your life revolves around pleasing your father, then your husband, then your sons. You hear a neighbor's loom, clacking through the wall, smell the tang of soy fermenting in a jar, and that's your world's mall, tight and unyielding. The imperial exam system's a mainstream fact. Worth noting, it's the golden ticket for social climbing, at least on paper. Since the Sui dynasty, it's been the way for smart guys to jump classes, but here's the catch: it's rigged. You need money for tutors' books and time luxuries most can't touch. Historians still bicker over how fair it was. Some say it lifted peasants to power. Others argue it was a rich man's game, riddled with bribes and favoritism. Either way, unless you've got a photographic memory and a fat wallet, you're not acing it. You're trapped plain and simple. No career switches, no finding yourself gap year. Your class is your fate, etched in stone or at least in the emperor's tax ledgers. The air hums with temple incense and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, while a lute's twang floats from a tea house. People bustle past in robes dyed crimson and indigo, their dialects, a jumbled buzz you can't untangle. You're a fish out of water, and survival feels like a long shot. But let's lighten the mood. You don't have to deal with Wi-Fi dropping mid-Zoom call here. Nope. Your biggest tech is an abacus, and entertainment's a storyteller spinning tales by lantern light. Beats scrolling X for drama, right? Still swap rush hour traffic for a drought that wipes out your rice crop, and suddenly modern life doesn't seem so bad. Picture this. You're dodging ox carts in the market, the ground sticky with spilled grain and mud. A vendor thrusts a bamboo basket of fish at you, shouting prices, while a kid darts by with a kite shaped like a dragon. It's alive, chaotic, and overwhelming. You're not just in feudal China, you're living it, and every step reminds you how little control you have. Next up, we'll dive into the daily grind. Think no plumbing, endless chores and rules that make your head spin. So hang tight. Your journey's just getting started, and it's not getting any easier. You wake the next morning to the same dim light filtering through the paper windows, the same ache in your bones from that unforgiving straw mat. The rooster's crow is your alarm clock, and there's no snooze button to save you. You groan, rolling off the mat, and stumble into another day of survival in feudal China. Yesterday's grind was tough, but today promises more of the same, plus a few extra surprises to keep you on your toes. The air outside is thick with the smell of dew-soaked earth and the faint tang of livestock. You shuffle to the well again, your arms still sore from yesterday's haul. The rope creaks as you pull up the bucket, and you mutter a silent prayer that it doesn't snap. Water sloshes over the edge despite your best efforts, and you sigh, another reminder that even the simplest tasks here come with a catch. Back home, you'd turn on a faucet without a second thought. Here it's a workout just to quench your thirst. Breakfast is the usual suspects: millet porridge, maybe a scrap of dried vegetable. You shovel it down the blandness, a stark contrast to the memory of crispy bacon or a warm croissant. Your mother tosses a few more twigs on the fire, the smoke stinging your eyes as you eat. You glance at her, wondering how she keeps going day after day. She doesn't complain. She can't afford to. None of you can. Today, you're not just farming or crafting. You've got a special task, courtesy of the village headman. It's tax season, and the Legia system means you're roped into helping collect grain from your neighbors. You grab a bamboo basket and trudge out, your patched tunic flapping in the breeze. The system's simple 10 households, one unit, everyone accountable for everyone else. If one family comes up short, you all feel the sting. It's like a group project, where no one wants to be the slacker, but someone always is. You knock on the first door, and Old Man John greets you with a scowl. Already he grumbles, handing over a pitiful sack of rice. You weigh it in your hands light too light. It's been a bad harvest, he says, avoiding your eyes. You nod, knowing the headman won't care about excuses. Next house, same story. By the time you've hit all 10, your basket's half empty and you're dreading the inevitable lecture from above. The Ming Dynasty's bureaucracy doesn't mess around. Taxes keep the empire running, and you're the unlucky cog in the machine. The sun's climbing higher now, baking the fields where you return after the tax fiasco. You grab your hoe and start digging the soil, clumping around the blade. Your hands are raw blisters forming on top of yesterday's blisters. A neighbor shouts something about irrigation, and you groan, another chore. The canals need clearing, and that means wading through muddy water, up to your knees. You slog through it, the cold muck sucking at your feet, and wonder if this is what people mean by living off the land. It feels more like the land's living off you. Lunch is a steamed bun, slightly stale, and you eat it perched on a rock. A fly buzzes around your head, and you swat at it, missing spectacularly. You're too tired to care. The afternoon stretches ahead, a marathon of weeding and hauling. If you're lucky, a breeze might kick up. If not, you're stewing in your own sweat until dusk. You catch a glimpse of the landlord's manor in the distance, silk curtains, tiled roofs, a life you'll never know. You snort. Must be nice, you mutter, turning back to your dirt. Evening creeps in, and you drag yourself home mud-caked on your legs. Dinner's a repeat of breakfast, with a bonus, a tiny sliver of salted fish. You savor it, the salt a rare treat on your tongue. The oil lamp flickers as you eat, and your little brother pipes up with a story about a fox spirit he heard from the old storyteller. You half listen too exhausted to care if it's true. Fox spirits sound nice, though. Maybe one could magic you a hot bath or a day off. Speaking of baths, you're overdue. You grab a bucket of well water cold, naturally, and scrub yourself with a rag that's seen better days. The dirt comes off in streaks, but you still feel grimy. Your hair's a mess tangled from the wind, and you rake your fingers through it, dreaming of shampoo. Teeth. You chew on a twig, scraping at the grime, and hope for the best. A toothache's brewing, and you shove that thought aside. Dentists aren't a thing here. Then there's the latrine situation. You hold your breath as you squat over the communal pit, the stench a punch to the gut. Flies buzz, and you move fast, vowing to invent plumbing if you ever get out of this time warp. Back inside, you collapse onto your mat, the straw poking through the thin cloth. You shift, trying to find a spot that doesn't jab your ribs, and remember that quirky fact about porcelain pillows. You'd take one over this mat any day. Status be damned, at least it be solid. Sleep doesn't come easy. The Ligia system's on your mind. Historians argue if it kept order or just bred resentment. You feel the latter stuck in this web of watchful eyes and shared burdens. A cough from your sister jolts you upright. Sickness is a specter here, and you've got no medicine beyond a bitter herb tea. You lie back staring at the ceiling, the weight of this life pressing down. Tomorrow's another dawn, another grind, and you wonder how long you can keep this up. You wake up the next morning to the same rooster crowing its shrill call, cutting through the thin walls of your peasant hut like an alarm clock with no snooze button. The straw mat beneath you feels even less forgiving than yesterday, if that's possible, and your body protests as you roll over. Every muscle aches from the field work, and you're pretty sure your hands have developed blisters on top of blisters. Welcome to day 2 in feudal China, where the only thing more relentless than the sunrise is the list of chores waiting for you. You stumble outside, the early morning air cool and damp against your skin. The village is stirring again, chickens clucking, a dog barking somewhere in the distance, and the faint clatter of someone already at work. Your first task, water of course. You grab the wooden bucket and trudge to the well, muttering to yourself about how people in the 21st century don't appreciate faucets enough. The rope bites into your raw palms as you haul up the bucket, and you nearly drop it when a frog leaps out of the well and lands at your feet. You stare at it, half expecting it to apologize, but it just hops off, leaving you to carry the heavy jar back to the hut. Inside, your mother is fanning the fire, the smoke curling up to the ceiling and making your eyes water. Breakfast is, you guessed it, millet porridge again. You spoon it into your mouth, trying to convince yourself it's oatmeal, but it's not fooling anyone. You glance at your sister, who's still coughing from last night. She looks pale, and a knot forms in your stomach. Back home, you'd call a doctor or grab some cough syrup. Here you're at the mercy of whatever herbs the village healer has lying around. You make a mental note to avoid getting sick, though you're not sure how to manage that without hand sanitizer or well soap that actually works. Into the fields. Again, after breakfast, it's back to the fields. You pick up your trusty wooden hoe, which feels more like a medieval torture device than a tool, and head out. The sun's already climbing, and the air is thick with the smell of earth and sweat. Today, you're planting millet-ironic, since you're starting to resent the stuff. You dig small holes in the dirt, drop in the seeds, and cover them up, all while dodging the occasional curious chicken that wanders over to inspect your work. One of them pecks at your foot, and you shoo it away, wondering if this is karmic payback for all those fried chicken wings you enjoyed in the modern world. The Legia system looms over you like a dark cloud. You're part of a 10-household group, and everyone's counting on everyone else to pull their weight. Yesterday, you overheard the headman grumbling about old Chong, who's behind on his taxes. If he doesn't pay up, the whole group could be punished, extra labor fines, or worse. You glance at your calloused hands and decide you'd rather not find out what worse entails. So you keep digging even as the sun beats down and your back screams for a break. A midday break. Sort of around noon. You get a brief pause. You flop onto a patch of grass, pulling out a steamed bun your mother packed for you. It's tough and chewy, like it's been sitting around since the last dynasty, but you're too hungry to care. As you eat, you watch a group of kids chasing each other with sticks, laughing, despite the dirt on their faces and the holes in their clothes. You can't help but smile, then wince as a fly lands on your bun. You swat it away, muttering about how feudal China could really use some bug spray. The afternoon drags on with more planting, and by the time you finish, your tunic is soaked with sweat, and your legs feel like they're made of lead. You trudge back to the village, passing a merchant leading an ox cart. He nods at you, and you nod back, though you're secretly jealous of his ox. At least it gets to stand still sometimes. Evening realities. Dinner is rice and a few wilted greens, which you eat by the flickering light of an oil lamp. The smoke from the fire mixes with the earthy smell of the hut, and you're too tired to care about the taste. Afterward, You face the latrine again, a wooden shack over a pit that smells like the end of the world. You hold your breath, finish quickly, and vow to invent toilet paper if you ever get the chance. Back in the hut, you collapse onto your straw mat. Your sister's cough seems worse, and your mother is boiling something that smells like wet grass, probably a remedy from the healer. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, and think about how fragile life is here. No hospitals, no vaccines, just you, against the elements and whatever germs are floating around. It's a sobering thought, and you pull the thin blanket tighter around you as if that'll protect you from the harsh reality of feudal existence. Reflections in the dark. As sleep creeps in, you can't help but compare this to your old life. Back home, you had a bed with a mattress, a fridge full of food, and a phone to scroll through when you were bored. Here you've got a straw mat, a bowl of millet, and the constant worry of survival. You miss Netflix, sure, but more than that, you miss the ease of it all the way. You could take a hot shower or pop a painkiller without a second thought. Feudal China is teaching you a lesson in gratitude, one backbreaking day at a time. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Water fields, porridge repeat. You're not sure how long you can keep this up, but one thing's clear. Life here is a grind, and you're starting to respect the people who lived it day in and day out with no escape button to press. You wake to the sound of shouting, your blanket damp with morning dew. The camp's a hive of activity, soldiers scrambling, officers barking orders, and the faint whiff of panic in the air. You rub your eyes and sit up your back, aching from a night on the hard ground. The river glimmers in the dawn light, but there's no time to admire it. Word spreading fast, a rival warlord's army is closing in, and your ragtag unit's supposed to hold the line. Great. You're barely awake, and now you're expected to play hero with a spear you don't even know how to use. You stumble to your feet, joining the others as they form a shaky formation. The officer from yesterday, the one who laughed at your rice bribe, strides past, his armor clanking. "Move it, farmer," he snaps. You mutter under your breath, something about wishing you'd stayed home with the ox carts. At least those didn't try to kill you. Well, usually, the political mess of feudal China is hitting you full force now. This isn't just about emperors and taxes anymore. It's about survival in a world where power flips faster than a street vendor's pancake. Take the Three Kingdoms period, centuries earlier, after the Han dynasty crumbled in the 200s. Warlords like Cao Cao Liu Bei and Sun Quan carved up the land, battling for dominance. You've heard the story's sepic clashes, cunning betrayals, and enough drama to rival a modern soap opera. Now it feels like you're living a sequel, except the costumes are itchier and the stakes are way too real. Your units march to a hill overlooking the river, and you catch your first glimpse of the enemy, a dark mass of soldiers, their banners snapping in the wind. Your heart's pounding like a war drum, and your hands are so sweaty you can barely grip your spear. Someone next to you, scrawny kid who looks even less prepared than you, whispers, "Think we'll make it?" You force a grin. "Sure, if we don't trip over each other first." He laughs nervously, and for a moment, you feel a flicker of camaraderie. Misery loves company, right? The battle starts with a roar, arrows whizzing overhead, the clash of metal and the screams of the unlucky. You're not trained for this, so you stick to the basics. Don't get stabbed. Don't run into your own side, and maybe poke something if you get the chance. It's chaos like a marketplace brawl, but with sharper toys. You dodge a swinging blade, nearly tripping over a rock, and wonder if anyone's keeping score. Probably not. These wars often end in stalemates with both sides limping away to lick their wounds until the next round. Historically, this kind of turmoil defined feudal China for centuries. Dynasties rose and fell like tides Qin Han Tang Songach, one promising stability, only to fracture under corruption rebellion or invaders. The Mongols swept in during the Yuan dynasty, and later the Manchus took over with the Qing. You're not sure where you fit in the timeline, but the pattern's clear: power's a hot potato, and you're the one getting burned. A horn blares, and suddenly the enemy's retreating. You're not sure why. Maybe their warlord got bored, or maybe your side accidentally looked competent for 5 minutes. Either way, you're alive, panting and dazed, but alive. The officer claps you on the shoulder, grinning. Not bad, farmer? You might make a soldier yet. You nod, too tired to argue, but inside you're plotting your escape. Wars, not your style. You'd rather haggle over cloth than dodge arrows any day. Later, as the sun dips low, you're back by the river, washing the grime off your face. The camp's quieter now, though the tension hasn't faded. You overhear a couple of soldiers grumbling about the emperor's latest edict, something about raising taxes to fund this mess. He sits on his throne, while we bleed, one mutters. The other snorts. Typical. Bet he's never held a spear in his life. You smirk. Sounds about right. The bureaucracy might keep the empire ticking, but it's the little guys like you who pay the price, and pay you do. The next morning, a messenger rides in his horse, lathered with sweat. Bad news: the warlord you just fought off has allied with another faction, and they're coming back with reinforcements. Your stomach sinks. It's like a bad video game level. Every time you think you've won, the boss respawns with friends. You glance at the river, half tempted to swim for it, but the current's too strong, and you're not that desperate. Yet. Life in feudal China's political storm isn't just about battle sits, the uncertainty that gets you. Will the emperor hold power? Will the warlords turn on each other? Will you ever see your village again? You don't know, and that's the worst part. For now, you tighten your grip on your spear. Take a deep breath and brace for whatever's next. The drums are beaten again, and the chaos isn't done with you yet. Imagine yourself in 14th century Shanghai, a city pulsing with life, yet teetering on the edge of chaos. The streets twist into narrow alleys, choked with the clamor of merchants, the clatter of carts, and the cries of the desperate. The air hangs heavy with the stench of rotting refuse, unwashed bodies, and the sharp tang of smoke from countless fires. In this world, disease is not just a threat, it's an ever-present predator lurking in the shadows of daily life. With no antibiotics to turn the tide, you must face these invisible enemies, armed only with the crude tools and scant knowledge of the time. The relentless foe. Rampant diseases. Diseases strike with terrifying speed and ferocity. The Black Death. A plague that haunts every corner of the city, announces itself with fever chills and the grotesque swelling of lymph nodes into blackened buboes. It spreads silently through fleas on rats, a mechanism unknown to you and your fellow Londoners. Instead, you might whisper of poisoned air or God's wrath as the cause, watching helplessly as neighbors collapse and bodies pile up in the streets. Cartwheels groan under the weight of the dead, bound for mass graves, dug in haste beyond the city walls. Smallpox, too, carves its mark across the population. Its pustules erupt on the skin, leaving survivors, if they're lucky, scarred and often blind. Cholera sweeps in like a thief, tainting the water you drink with its deadly touch. Within hours, it wrenches your body with violent diarrhea and dehydration, a merciless killer, that spares neither noble nor beggar. Tuberculosis creeps more slowly, a cough that deepens into a death rattle, claiming lives over months or years. These are your enemies, and without antibiotics, they reign supreme. Fighting filth. Hygiene in a dark age. Hygiene offers little defense against this onslaught. Bathing is a rare ritual, not a habit. When you do wash, it's often in a public bathhouse where murky water swirls with the grime of countless others, a stew of disease rather than a shield against it. Soap is a luxury, and clean water is scarce. The rivers you rely on are fouled with waste tossed from homes and workshops. Chamber pots are emptied into the streets, where sewage festers in open gutters, breeding flies and sickness. You might carry a pomandera ball of scented herbsto ward off the stench, but it's a frail mask against the filth that surrounds you. The science of germs lies centuries ahead, so you don't know that washing your hands or boiling water could save lives. Instead, you cling to superstitions, a sprig of rosemary tucked into your sleeve, a prayer muttered against the miasmas, thought to carry illness. The reality is stark. Your world is a petri dish, and cleanliness is a battle you're ill-equipped to fight. Desperate measures. Medical treatments without modern medicine. When disease strikes, your options are few and often brutal. Herbal remedies are your first line of defense, garlic to fend off plague, roof, or fever, but their success is a gamble rooted more in hope than evidence. Barber surgeons wielding razors and lancets offer bloodletting as a cure for nearly everything. They slice into your veins to balance the humors, believing illness stems from an excess of blood or bile. More often than not, this leaves you weaker, your body drained when it most needs strength. Physicians, if you can afford them, peer at your urine or consult the stars, prescribing concoctions of roots and powders. Their grand theories sound convincing, but their cures rarely work. In desperation, you might turn to a wise woman who brews potions in a smoky hovel, or pin your faith on a saint's relic, pressing it to your fevered brow. Amulets dangle from your neck, and prayers rise to the heavens. But without antibiotics, these are acts of defiance against an enemy you cannot see or truly defeat. Grasping at hope public health efforts. Some measures hint at a broader fight. When plague descends, the city orders quarantine sick families locked in their homes, marked with a red cross, and the plea, "Lord, have mercy upon us." Pest houses spring up to isolate the stricken grim refuges where survival is a rarity. Ships arriving at port linger for 40 days, a precaution born of bitter experience. You might see men carting away waste or digging channels to divert sewage, but these efforts are sporadic, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the problem. The will to resist exists, yet the tools and understanding fall short. The toll of survival society under siege. This relentless battle shapes every facet of life. Death is a familiar guest, stealing children before their 5th year and leaving parents hollow with grief. A single outbreak can shatter families, stripping away breadwinners and plunging survivors into poverty. Fear threads through the city, fear of the next cough, the next stranger, the next sip of water. Trade falters as markets close and roads empty, the lifeblood of commerce stanched by disease. The church bells toll endlessly, a mournful rhythm that underscores the fragility of existence. Yet amidst this hardship, resilience flickers. You adapt, clinging to rituals and remedies, finding strength in community. Survival becomes a triumph, a story whispered to the next generation if you live to tell it. In this Shanghai of the 14th century, you wage a war against rampant diseases with no antibiotics in sight. It's a struggle defined by ignorance and courage, where every day tests your will to endure. The contrast to today's world with its medicines and sanitation is stark a reminder of the quiet miracles that shield us now, and the brutal reality you once faced alone. You wake to the faint light of dawn creeping through the cracks in your thatched roof, the air cool and damp against your skin. The straw mat beneath you scratches at your back as you sit up, your stomach growling, a sharp, insistent reminder that it's time to face another day. This isn't your modern world of convenience where food waits in a fridge or a takeout bag. Here in this ancient village, every meal is a hard-won prize, and the shadow of famine looms over every bite you take. The air smells of damp earth and wood smoke mingling with the faint tang of yesterday's gruel still clinging to the pot. You pull your rough woolen tunic over your head and step outside the dirt cold beneath your bare feet, wondering what today will bring sustenance or struggle. Your diet is a far cry from anything you'd recognize as comfort food. Breakfast is a hunk of coarse bread baked from barley or rye, the grains ground by hand between two stones until your arms ached. The loaf is dense, almost gritty, with a faint, ashy taste from the open fire where it was cooked. You tear off a piece and dip it into a bowl of watery porridge more gruel than meal made from whatever scraps of grain you could salvage. It slides down your throat, tasteless and thin, but you force it down anyway. Some days, there's a bit of lucca, scrap of salted fish, its flesh tough and pungent, or a handful of dried peas that crunch between your teeth. Today, though, it's just the bread and gruel, and you eat quickly, knowing it might be hours before you taste anything else. Food here is dictated by the land and the season, not by choice. There are no grocery stores, no imports from distant lands, no spices to mask the monotony. In summer, you might pluck a few wilted vegetables from the small patch behind your hut turnips, with their bitter bite onions that sting your eyes or cabbage leaves riddled with insect holes. By winter, those are gone, replaced by dried beans that rattle in their sack and grain stores that shrink with every passing week. Meat is a dream for someone like you, a commoner with no wealth or status. The wealthy might dine on roasted boar or fresh-caught trout, but for you, it's a rare sliver of gristle or a bone to gnaw on if a neighbor takes pity and shares a kill. You've learned to ignore the gnawing hunger that lingers even after a meal, a constant companion in this life. Cooking is its own battle. There's no sleek stove or gleaming cookware, just a fire pit in the center of your hut, its flames licking at a blackened clay pot. Smoke curls upward, stinging your eyes and coating your lungs while you crouch over it, stirring with a wooden spoon worn smooth from years of use. The tools are simple: a knife with a dull edge, a flat stone for grinding a basket, for carrying what little you gather. The bread comes out hard, the porridge lumpy, the occasional stew, a mix of whatever roots or herbs you've scavenged. You've never tasted the crispness of a modern vegetable or the tenderness of a well-seasoned dish. Here, food is survival, not pleasure, and you swallow it down with a grimace, thankful it's there at all. But even this fragile routine hangs by a thread. Farming in this time is a desperate roll of the dice, and you're the one shaking the cup. The fields stretch out beyond the village, patches of earth scratched open with wooden plows, pulled by oxen or on harder days by your own blistered hands. You scatter seeds into the soil, your back bent under the sun, and pray for the right mix of rain and warmth. Too much water and the crops rot. Too little and they wither. Pests swarm in the heat locusts, or mice that devour what you've sown while storms can flatten a season's work in a single night. The tools are crude, the methods ancient, and every harvest is a gamble you can't afford to lose. Famine isn't a distant tale, it's a memory etched into the faces around you. You've seen it strike before turning neighbors into shadows of themselves. Droughts parch the land, floods drown the fields, or war tears through leaving nothing to reap. When the grain stores empty, desperation sets in. You've watched families ration their last handfuls, stretching a single loaf across days until it's gone. The stories are grim people boiling roots, pulled from the forest, chewing bark until their mouths bleed, or softening old leather in water just to fill their bellies. You've seen the lucky ones snare a rat or a scrawny bird, their hands trembling as they tear into it. The unlucky ones simply fade away too weak to stand, their eyes dull with resignation. That fear clings to you like damp cloth. Every meal comes with a silent question. Is this the last one for a while? You hoard what you can, drying herbs in the sun, salting any scrap of meat you come across, burying grain in clay pots beneath the floor. But it's never enough to quiet the dread. The elders still whisper of the great famine, a time when half the village starved, their bodies left in shallow graves, when the ground was too hard to dig deeper. You see their ghosts in every lean season, a warning that nature doesn't care for your prayers or your toil. And yet there's a strange rhythm to this hardship, a resilience you can't help but feel. The small victories shine brighter here, a ripe apple you find fallen from a wild tree, its sweetness a shock against your tongue. A fresh egg from the hen house, its yolk a burst of richness. A shared cup of ale, warm and bitter, passed around a fire with friends. Food becomes more than fuel, it's a marker of survival, a thread tying you to the earth and the seasons. Harvest time brings a fleeting joy, a feast of bread and stew. Even if the portions are small, a moment to breathe before the cycle begins again. You finish your meager breakfast and step into the fields, the sun climbing higher as you grab your tools. The work is brutal hours of bending, digging, hauling, but it's the only thing standing between you and starvation. Your hands sink into the soil, gritty and cool, and you murmur a prayer for a good yield, for mercy from the skies. The golden heads of grain sway in the breeze, a promise you hope won't be broken. But as you toil, the air carries more than the scent of earth. Whispers ripple through the village of raiders spotted on the horizon of a king's army, marching closer, of unrest that could shatter this fragile life. You've survived the threat of famine, clinging to every scrap, but something else is brewing. The fields might feed you today, but tomorrow brings a different kind of danger that no harvest can fend off. You wake to the village crier's call piercing the dawn, a hoarse shout that drags you from sleep. The air is cool and damp, carrying the faint tang of wood smoke and freshly turned earth. You blink, remembering it's the feast day of St. Anthony, patron saint of lost things. Scrambling out of bed, you tug on a coarse woolen tunic and stumble toward the village square, drawn by the hum of celebration already underway. The square bursts with life. Villagers twirl around a maypole ribbons, weaving a bright tapestry of colors, greens, blues, while a lute's cheerful strum fills the air. The scent of roasting meat teases your nose, but your attention snags on something stranger. Nearly everyone wears an amulet. Some sport small leather pouches bulging with herbs. Others clutch stones with natural holes or tiny wooden crosses. You sidle up to a woman, her cheeks rosy from dancing, and point to the charm at her neck. What's it for, you ask? She grins, holding up a smooth stone. Keeps the spirits at bay. And this she pulls a sprig of rosemary from her pouch wards off the evil eye. You don't want someone's envy cursing you, do you? You stare unsure how to respond, a curse from a glance. It sounds absurd, but her earnestness is unshakable. Get yourself one, she advises, patting your arm. Better safe than sorry. Wandering on, you spot a cluster of people by the well, tossing coins into its depths. A girl no older than 10 notices your confusion. For luck, she says brightly, and to keep the water spirits happy. Ignore them, and the well might run dry. You peer into the dark water, half expecting a ripple of something supernatural, then dig out a coin and flick it in. The plink echoes, and the villagers smile. You shrug. It's their world, not yours. The church bells clang, summoning you to a blessing. Inside, the air thickens with incense as the priest sprinkles holy water over bowed heads, his voice a low chant against evil. People clutch vials of the stuff, and an old man presses one into your hand. Sprinkle it at your door, he mutters. Keeps the demons out. You thank him, though the idea of demons lurking in your borrowed hut feels laughable until you see the fear in his eyes. The day unfolds like a pageant of the bizarre. A farmer knocks on a wooden fence after praising his crops, muttering touch wood to dodge misfortune. A boy crosses his fingers, whispering for his sister's recovery. When a black cat crosses your path, a woman grabs you, insisting you spit over your shoulder. Bad luck otherwise, she snaps. You comply, feeling ridiculous, but her relief is palpable. At a wedding, the bride and groom leap over a broomstick to cheers a ritual for fertility and joy, they say. You can't connect the dots, but their faith in it is absolute. More unsettling is the talk of a trial. By ordeal, a man accused of theft must walk over hot coals. Unscathed, his innocent, burned guilty. You shudder imagining the pain, but the villagers nod as if it's the most natural thing. Midday, you stumble on men preparing a house site. They don't start with tools, but with rituals, bearing a coin for wealth, scattering salt to purify, chanting prayers for protection. You watch captivated as they move with grave precision. One builder, a gruff man with hands like slabs, catches your stare. Think it's foolish, he grumbles. I just don't get it, you admit. He snorts. A man skipped this once. House burned, family sick and all within a year. I'd rather pray than risk it. His story hangs in the air, and you wonder if there's truth in their caution, however strange it seems. Everywhere superstition reigns. A sneeze prompts a blessing to guard your soul from the devil. Mirrors are shrouded during storms to fend off lightning. Horseshoes clink above doors to bar witches. It's a relentless dance of habit and belief, and you're dizzy trying to keep up. You duck into the wise woman's hut, drawn by the sharp scent of herbs. She stirs a cauldron, her gnarled hands steady. Fever cure, she says, nodding at the brew. Elderflower and yarrow. You sniff the steam bitter earthy and ask, does it work? Sometimes, she replies, the spirits decide. Her blend of practicality and mysticism leaves you blinking, but it's clear. This is their medicine, rooted in faith as much as plants. Even the stars hold power. In the square, an astrologer unrolls charts, villagers pressing close. When's best to sow, one asks. Should I wed, another begs. He traces celestial paths, and they hang on his words, trusting the sky to guide them. You glance up, seeing only twinkling lights, but to them, it's a cosmic script. As dusk falls, you trudge back to your lodgings, head buzzing. The feast, the charms, the rites, they're alien, yet mesmerizing, a web of belief binding this world together. Lying on your straw bed, The night heavy with lavender and smoke, you ponder their lives. Do these customs comfort them or confine them? And what of learning? Does it thrive here, or wither under tradition's weight? Sleep tugs at you, but your thoughts drift to the village scholar, a man rumored to wield the magic of words. Tomorrow you'll seek him out curious how education fits into this tangle of superstition. For now, you close your eyes, lulled by a distant lute, dreaming of coins in wells and fates written in the stars. You wake up to the relentless crowing of a rooster, your back screaming from another night on a wooden bed that's about as comfortable as a rock. Welcome to another day as a student in feudal China. You groan, rubbing sleep from your eyes as the faint scent of incense drifts in, signaling the start of yet another thrilling chapter in your academic journey. The Confucian Academy is already alive with the low hum of students reciting texts, and you know it's only a matter of minutes before you're dragged into the chorus. Lucky you. Stumbling to your feet, you pull on your plain cotton robe. Fashion isn't exactly a priority here, and grab your writing brush and a stack of bamboo slips. Paper, that's a distant dream. These slips are your lifeline, your ticket to scribbling down the wisdom of the ancients. As you shuffle toward the courtyard, you can't help but pine for the good old days of textbooks, laptops, and teachers who didn't think memorizing 2,000-year-old quotes was the pinnacle of education. The academy itself is a modest setup, a tiled roof, wooden pillars, and a small garden that's the only thing keeping you sane. Inside the main hall is a sea of low tables where students like you sit cross-legged, hunched over scrolls, like monks in a trance. The walls are plastered with calligraphy from long-dead scholars staring down at you as if to say, "Don't screw this up, kid." You plop down at your spot, unroll your scroll, and squint at the characters that seem to dance mockingly before your bleary eyes. Enter Master Li, your teacher and resident taskmaster. He's got a beard that could double as a broom and eyes that could pierce steel. He paces the aisles, hands behind his back, ready to pounce on any misstep. The Analects, Book 1. Chapter 3. He declares his voice, cutting through the morning haze. Recite. You take a deep breath and join the robotic symphony of your classmates. The master said, "At 15, I set my heart on learning. At 30, I took my stand. At 40, I was free from doubts. Blah, blah, blah." The words spill out like a pre-programmed script, but your brain's already checked out. You're dreaming of Netflix pizza in a world where critical thinking isn't a foreign concept. Instead, you're stuck chanting Confucius like it's a sacred karaoke session. Master Li pauses next to you, his shadow darkening your scroll. "Focus, young scholar," he snaps. "The path to wisdom is through diligence, not daydreaming." You nod like a scolded puppy, forcing yourself to drone on, though you're pretty sure Confucius never had to deal with a 7 a.m. wake-up call. Let's be real, education here isn't just school. It's a full-on lifestyle. In feudal China, it's all about molding you into a proper virtuous citizen ready to serve the emperor and society. The big prize, the imperial examinations. These are the SATs on steroids, years of prep for a shot at a cushy government gig, social clout, and maybe even a say in how things are run. Pass, and you're golden. Fail, and you're back to farming rice or staring at goats all day. No pressure, right? The exams hinge on the Confucian classics. Think Analect's Book of Songs, the I Ching, and a handful of other ancient hits. These texts are the bedrock of Chinese culture, and mastering them is your ticket to proving you're not just some peasant with a brush. But to you, They're a pile of dusty, cryptic ramblings that feel about as useful as a horoscope in a storm. You sneak a glance around the room. Some students are scribbling away their brushes, moving like they're possessed. Others are muttering under their breath, wrestling with the same passages you are. A few look like they're one recitation away from a nap. You wonder if they're as fed up as you are, or if they've drunk the Confucian Kool-Aid. Finally, a break. You stumble outside to the garden, where a pond and some willow trees offer a brief escape. You plunk down on a stone bench, watching a dragonfly zip around, and for a second, you forget the scrolls and the lectures. Then Master List's voice booms back to work, and your mini vacation's over. Inside, it's filial piety, Time Confucius' greatest hit. To be a good son, one must honor and obey one's parents, Master Li drones. This is the root of all virtue. You nod, but internally, you're rolling your eyes so hard they might fall out. Sure, respecting mom and dad is cool, but does it need to be your entire personality? The day drags on, and staying awake becomes a Herculean task. The air's thick, the chanting's hypnotic, and your head's bobbing like a buoy. You prop it up with your hand, but it's a losing battle. Just as you're about to doze off, Master Li zeroes in. What does this passage teach us about governance, he asks, pinning you with that stare. You jolt upright, heart pounding. That a ruler should lead by example and cultivate moral integrity. You blurt, praying it's close enough. He nods barely. Correct. A good ruler is like a good parent, guiding with benevolence and wisdom. Phew. Dodge that bullet. You're not keen on copying characters 100 times as punishment your hand cramps just thinking about it. Speaking of writing, the tools here are a joke. Bamboo slips messy ink you'd kill for a ballpoint pen or a tablet. Instead, you're stuck with this medieval DIY kit, dreaming of a world where cut and paste isn't a fantasy. But there's a silver lining. The calligraphies. Pretty dope, master. List brush strokes are like watching art happen in real time. And the repetition? It's got a weird Zen vibe if you don't fight it. Still your brain's screaming for mercy, stuffed with more facts than it can handle. By the end of the day, you're wiped out, but kind of proud. You survived, learned a few characters, and didn't get caught napping. Progress. As you pack up, you can't help but wonder what if education here was more than rote learning. What if you could debate, create, explore? Fat chance. This is Tradition Central, and you're along for the ride. Walking back to your quarters, the sun dipping low. You're hit with a mix of annoyance and intrigue. Tomorrow's another grind, another shot at cracking this ancient code. Maybe there's wisdom in it you'll catch on to someday. For now, you just want to crash and dream of a world where learning's easy, where dusty scrolls are replaced by screens, and knowledge isn't a slog, but a spark. That dream feels miles away, though. You're stuck with bamboo and ink, longing for tools that don't exist here. It's almost funny here you are memorizing the past, while the future's tech teases you from afar. Guess that's the next chapter, surviving with the barest of basics in a world that's light years behind. You wake to the faint light of dawn, filtering through the cracks in your thatched hut, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. Your back aches from another night on a straw mat that feels more like a bed of nails, and as you sit up, you instinctively reach for your phone, only to remember with a sinking feeling that it doesn't exist here. No glowing screen to check the time, no notifications to scroll through, no quick text to let someone know you're awake. Instead, you're greeted by the distant crowing of a rooster and the realization that you're stuck in a world where the height of technology is a wheelbarrow. Welcome to your new reality. You stumble outside, squinting against the early morning light, and take in the village around you. It's a small settlement nestled in a valley somewhere in ancient China or maybe medieval Europe. The details are fuzzy, but the lack of modern amenities is painfully clear. The air smells of livestock and freshly turned soil, and the only sounds are the clucking of chickens and the occasional snort of a pig. There's no hum of electricity, no distant roar of traffic, just the quiet rhythm of a world that moves at the pace of nature. It's almost peaceful until you remember that you have to live in it. Your first challenge of the day is communication. Back home, you'd fire off a text or make a quick call to coordinate plans. Here, if you need to talk to someone, you have to physically walk to their hut or send a messenger on foot. Want to meet up with a friend? Better hope they're not on the other side of the village or you'll be trekking for hours. And don't even think about asking for directions. There's no Google Maps to guide you, just vague landmarks like the big tree or the crooked fence. You've already gotten lost twice, once ending up in a field, arguing with a goat that seemed to know the way better than you did. Then there's the matter of writing. You need to send a message to the village elder, but instead of typing it out on a keyboard, you're handed a quill and a piece of parchment. The quill is a temperamental thing, dipping into ink that's too thick or too runny. And the parchment is rough, snagging the tip with every stroke. You try to form neat letters, but it's like writing with a stick in the mud-own wrong move, and you've got a blotchy mess. Backspacing, forget it. You'd give anything for a simple pen, or better yet, a laptop with spell check. Instead, you're stuck with this medieval torture device you're hand cramping as you scratch out each word. Timekeeping is another headache. There are no clocks, no watches, just the position of the sun in the sky. You're supposed to meet someone at midday, but what does that even mean? Is it when the sun is directly overhead or when the shadows are shortest? You're constantly guessing, and it doesn't help that everyone else seems to have an innate sense of time that you just don't possess. You show up too early, too late, or not at all, earning yourself a reputation as the village's least punctual resident. If only you had your phone's alarm to save you. Entertainment. That's a whole other story. No Netflix, no Spotify, no YouTube to kill time. Your options are limited to storytelling around a fire playing a rudimentary flute that sounds like a dying cat, or maybe a game of dice if you're feeling adventurous. You try to explain the concept of binge watching to a local, describing how you can sit for hours watching stories unfold on a glowing box. They stare at you like you've grown a second head. You mean you watch tales all day without moving? Yeah, good luck making that sound normal. You miss your playlists, your podcasts, the endless scroll of social media. Anything to distract you from the monotony of village life. Medical technology is practically non-existent, and that's a terrifying thought. If you get sick, there's no pharmacy down the street, no doctor with a prescription pad. Instead, you're at the mercy of the village healer, who might recommend a poultice of boiled roots or worse leeches to balance your humors. You've got a headache that's been lingering for days, and all you want is a bottle of ibuprofen and a proper diagnosis. Instead, you're handed a bitter herbal tea that tastes like dirt and told to rest. You'd trade your left arm for a single Advil right now. Even cooking is a battle. There's no microwave, no electric stove, just an open flame and a clay pot. You're trying to make a simple stew, but the fire's too hot, the pot's too small, and you've burned your hand twice already. The vegetables are tough, the meat is stringy, and seasoning is a distant dream. You'd kill for a microwave burrito or even a packet of instant noodles. Instead, you're stuck with this primitive setup, praying you don't set the hut on fire in the process. Transportation is another nightmare. No cars, no bikes, just your feet, or if you're lucky, a horse. But horses are temperamental beasts that seem to enjoy throwing you off at the worst possible moments. You've already taken a tumble into a muddy ditch, much to the amusement of the locals. Walking everywhere is exhausting, and the paths are rough, uneven tracks that twist through the countryside. You miss your cars, heated seats, the smooth hum of the engine, and the GPS that always knew the way. Here you're at the mercy of your own 2 feet and a vague sense of direction that's failing you spectacularly. Perhaps the most frustrating part is the lack of instant information. No Google to answer your burning questions. No Wikipedia to settle debates. If you want to know something, you have to ask around or, heaven forbid, read a book. And books are rare, expensive, and often in a language you don't understand. You're left feeling ignorant and frustrated, longing for the days when knowledge was just a click away. You try to explain the internet to a curious villager, but the concept of a World Wide Web sounds like sorcery. So you can ask a question, and the answer appears on a screen they ask wide-eyed. Exactly, you say, but they just shake their head, convinced you're making it up. As you fumble through this low-tech world, you start to appreciate the little things you took for granted. The glow of your smartphone screen, the hum of a refrigerator, the convenience of a light switch. You realize that technology isn't just about gadgets. It's about the comfort and ease they bring to your life. Here, every task is a struggle every day, a test of patience and endurance. But there's a strange silver lining. Without the constant buzz of notifications and the pressure to stay connected, you find moments of peace. You notice the stars more clearly at night, their light untainted by city glow. The sound of the wind in the trees, the warmth of a fire shared with others, it's almost soothing, even if it's wrapped in hardship. There's a simplicity here that you've never experienced before, a connection to the world that feels raw and real. Still, you'd trade it all for a hot shower and a Wi-Fi connection. As you sit by the fire, trying to mend a torn tunic with a bone needle that's more likely to stab your finger than sew a stitch you can't help, but dream of the day when you'll be back in your own time, surrounded by the comforts of modernity. You miss the ease of a washing machine, the convenience of a grocery store, the miracle of indoor plumbing. This life is a grind, and you're not sure how much more you can take. The wind picks up, rustling the thatch of your hut and carrying the faint rumble of thunder in the distance. You pause, bone needle still in hand, and glance outside. The sky is darkening fast, heavy clouds swallowing the last of the daylight. You've been trying to patch a tear in your tunic for the better part of an hour, but the needle keeps slipping, pricking your fingers more often than it stitches the coarse fabric. You'd give anything for a sewing machine, or even just a proper metal needle instead of this brittle, awkward thing carved from an animal bone. But there's no time to dwell on that now. A storm is coming, and you're woefully unprepared. You step outside, the air thick with the metallic tang of impending rain. The villagers are already scrambling, tying down loose bundles of straw and herding livestock into makeshift shelters. You realize with a pang that you have no idea what to do. Back home, a storm meant checking your weather app, closing the windows, and maybe binge-watching a show until the power flickered back on. Here, There's no radar to warn you of the storms. Strength. No cozy couch to ride it out on, just you, a flimsy hut, and a sinking feeling that this is going to be bad. Your first instinct is to secure your shelter, but that's easier said than done. The roof is a patchwork of straw and mud held together by hope and a few brittle sticks. You grab a length of rope well more like a twisted bundle of plant fibers that passes for rope around here and try to lash down the edges. The wind yanks at it, and your knots learned from a half-remembered YouTube tutorial unravel almost instantly. If you had duct tape or even a tarp, this would be a breeze. Instead, you're wrestling with materials that seem determined to betray you at every turn. Water starts to fall first in fat-scattered drops, then in a relentless downpour. You dash inside, only to find the roof leaking like a sieve. You grab your one clay pot, your prized possession, after the stew-making fiasco, and place it under the worst drip. Within minutes, it's overflowing, and you're out of options. You miss your waterproof jacket, your sturdy apartment walls, the hum of a dehumidifier. Heck, you'd settle for an umbrella. Instead, you're soaked to the bone, shivering as the storm howls around you. The wind tears at the hut, and a particularly fierce gust rips a chunk of thatch clean off. You stare in horror as rain pours through the gap, turning the dirt floor into a muddy swamp. You try to patch it with a scrap of hide, but your hands are trembling, and the hide is too stiff to mold properly. If you had a toolbox, a hammer, some nails, maybe a sheet of plywood, this would be fixable. But all you've got is a flint knife and a growing sense of despair. You're not a carpenter. You're a modern human who's spent more time troubleshooting Wi-Fi than building anything from scratch. Lightning cracks overhead, illuminating the chaos. The villagers shout to one another, their voices barely audible over the roar of the storm. You catch snippets of their plan, something about reinforcing the communal barn, but you're too busy bailing water out of your hut with your hands to join them. You'd kill for a bucket, a sump pump, anything to make this less Sisyphean. Instead, you're scooping mud and praying the whole structure doesn't collapse on you. As the night wears on, the storm shows no signs of letting up. You're exhausted, cold, and starting to wonder if this is how it ends, drowned in a puddle, because you couldn't figure out how to weatherproof a hut with Stone Age tech. You think back to all the modern marvels you took for granted: central heating, electric lights, a roof that didn't leak every time the sky got grumpy. Your smartphone, with its endless apps and glowing screen, feels like a distant dream. You'd trade a year of your life just to Google how to survive a storm without losing your mind. But there's no Google here, no quick fixes. You're forced to rely on your wits, which feel duller by the minute. You drag a damp pile of straw into a corner, hoping it'll dry out enough to sleep on, and huddle there, listening to the rain hammer the world outside. The simplicity you'd started to appreciate, the stars, the fire, the quiet, feels like a cruel joke now. Peace is hard to come by when you're one gust away from homelessness. Eventually, the storm begins to ease, the thunder fading into a low grumble. You peek outside, blinking at the wreckage. The village is a mess hut, sagging pens, broken crops flattened. The locals are already at work, rebuilding with a resilience that leaves you both awed and envious. They don't have power tools or hardware stores, but they've got grit and a lifetime of know-how you can't begin to match. You pitch in hauling debris with your aching arms, wishing for a forklift or at least a wheelbarrow that doesn't wobble like a drunk toddler. As the sun rises, painting the sky, a bruised purple, you take stock of your situation. Your hut's still standing barely, And you've learned a harsh lesson about the limits of primitive technology. You're starting to adapt slowly, painfully, but the gap between this life and the one you knew yawns wider than ever. Every creak of your sore muscles, every squelch of mud underfoot reminds you of what you've lost: the ease, the speed, the comfort of modernity. Yet there's a flicker of something new in you, stubborn spark of determination. You've survived a storm with nothing but your hands and a few crude tools. It's not much, but it's something. Maybe you can figure this out. You wipe the mud from your face and pick up the flint knife, ready to try again. The next challenge is already looming: rebuilding, surviving, making this place home. You're not sure how you'll manage, but you've got no choice but to keep going. The sky turns a bruised shade of gray as you step outside your hut, the air thick with the promise of rain. You squint up at the clouds, heavy and oppressive, rolling in like an army ready to strike. A low rumble of thunder echoes in the distance, and a shiver crawls up your spine. You've seen storms before, but this one feels different, wilder, more untamed. In your modern life, you'd flick on your phone scroll through a weather app, maybe catch a news update warning of flash floods. But here, in this ancient world, you're as blind as the dirt beneath your feet. No radar, no sirens, just the sky's grim mood and the knot of dread twisting in your gut. You duck back inside, grabbing anything that might help: a sack of millet, a tattered cloak, a crude wooden shovel. It's a laughable arsenal against what's coming, but it's all you've got. Outside, the village is buzzing with frantic energy: shouts, the clatter of tools, the bleating of panicked goats. The first raindrops hit tentative at first, then harder, drumming against the thatched roofs like a war chant. You join the others, your pulse racing, as the storm unleashes its fury. The river, once a sleepy ribbon threading through the valley, is waking up. You watch, heart sinking, as it swells beyond its banks, muddy water surging with a ferocity that makes your stomach lurch. You've got no time to gawk. You haul sacks of grain and bundles of straw to the water's edge, piling them into a flimsy wall. It's a joke compared to the sandbags and concrete levees of your old world, but here it's this or nothing. The rain pounds down, soaking you to the bone, and the wind howls like it's mocking your efforts. The flood comes fast, too fast. The water churns with broken branches and shards of pottery lapping at your pitiful barrier before tearing through it like paper. You and your neighbors scramble, digging trenches with splintered shovels, piling mud and rocks to stem the tide. Your hands blister your backaches, but you keep going, fueled by a mix of fear and stubbornness. There's no rescue team on standby, no helicopters buzzing overhead with supplies. You're at just you, your aching muscles, and a village full of people staring down the same nightmare. The chaos mounts. You catch glimpses of terror in the faces around you, eyes wide, mouths tight with panic. A child wails, clinging to her mother's leg as the water creeps into their home. You want to help, but you're knee-deep in muck, fighting to save your own hut. A shout cuts through the roar of the storm. The granaries flooding, you turn to see the low wooden structure, tilting water rushing in to claim the village's food stores. You slog over, joining a handful of men, trying to prop it up with logs, but the current's too strong. The granary groans, then collapses, sending sacks of rice floating away like lost dreams. You're losing ground, literally. The water's up to your thighs, now cold and relentless, tugging at your legs like it wants to drag you under. In your old life, this would have been someone else's problem engineers with pumps, officials with plans. Here it's all on you. You yell to the others, organizing a retreat to higher ground. You snatch what you can of clay, pot a soggy blanket, a flint, and slog through the mud, the rain blinding you with every step. The path is a mess, slick and treacherous, but you push on, half carrying a neighbor who's twisted his ankle. When you finally reach the hills, you turn back chest heaving. The village is a watery graveyard. Huts sagging into the flood fields swallowed the river, now a sprawling beast that's claimed it all. Your breath catches at the sight. No disaster relief will roll in here, no checks to rebuild. It's just you and these soaked, shivering people staring at a future you'll have to claw back from nothing. But there's something else in their eyes, grit a quiet fire, that refuses to drown. You see it as they start rigging up shelters from branches and torn cloth sharing what little food they've salvaged. You pitch in your hands, trembling from cold and exhaustion, but there's a strange warmth in the work. This is survival stripped Barreno tech, no safety nets, just raw human will. You think of your old world cushioned by dams and forecasts and feel a pang of longing. Yet there's pride to your still standing, even if it's on shaky legs. Night falls, and you hunker down in a makeshift camp, the rain a soft patter now, like it's tired of fighting. A small fire crackles, spitting smoke into the damp air. You warm your hands, staring into the flames, and let your mind wander. You miss hot showers, dry clothes, the hum of a heater. But you've made it through a day that would have broken most people back home. It's a victory, small and battered, but yours. The flood's only the beginning, though. This world doesn't play nice. Earthquakes could rattle the ground tomorrow, or a drought could bake it dry. You shiver at the thought, not from the cold, but from the realization of how exposed you are. Each day's a roll of the dice, and you're learning fast that survival here isn't just about muscle, it's about mindset. These people don't rage against the chaos. They bend with it, endure it, rebuild from it. That resilience, that fatalistic grit feels alien to you, a chasm between their lives and the one you knew. It's a difference you'll need to bridge if you're going to keep going. And as you drift into uneasy sleep, you wonder how deep that gap really runs. The floodwaters have finally retreated, leaving behind a sodden mess of mud-broken wood and scattered belongings. You stand amidst the villagers, the air heavy with the smell of damp earth and rot. Your clothes cling to you cold and wet, a lingering echo of the storm's chaos. The village looks like a battlefield after a Routhut's lean precariously animal pens lie in splinters, and the fields are a swamp of ruined crops. Yet the villagers don't pause to mourn. They're already moving hands busy with tasks, their faces set with a quiet resolve that both amazes and baffles you. You want to admire their grit, but their approach feels maddeningly haphazard to your structured modern sensibilities. You step toward a group of men, dragging logs to patch a fallen hut. Maybe we should plan this out, you say, your tone edged with the practicality you've always known. Set up teams. Figure out which buildings need fixing. First aid, save time and effort. They stop eyeing you with a blend of curiosity and mild amusement. An older man, his face etched with lines like a map of hard years, lets out a low chuckle. The spirits sent the flood to test us, he says, his voice steady. We rebuild as our fathers did. That's how we endure. You press your lips together, holding back a sharp reply. Efficiency and logic. Your tools mean nothing here. Tradition, rules woven with a faith in spirits you can't grasp. Reluctantly, you hoist a log onto your shoulder, the weight biting into your aching muscles. You try to keep up, but your mind churns. There's a better way, if only they'd listen. Nearby, the women cluster by the riverbank, washing clothes and minding children. Their voices rise in soft laughter, a counterpoint to the men's grunts. You watch unease prickling under your skin. In your time, roles bend and shift. Anyone can do anything. Here, the lines are carved deep, unyielding. You catch sight of May, a young woman you've come to know, her hands scrubbing fabric with a practiced rhythm. Her smile is warm but fleeting, shadowed by something you can't name. During a break, you sit with her, the river's murmur filling the silence. I wish I could help with the rebuilding, she says suddenly. Her gaze sharp, with a frustration that mirrors your own. But that's not for me to do. You nod, understanding too well. Where I'm from, women can build, fight anything men. Can you tell her, offering a glimpse of your world? Her eyes widen, a spark of wonder flaring. Really? That sounds wild. How does anything hold together? You laugh, a little hollow. It's messy sometimes, but we prize freedom, equality. May tilts her head, a faint smile tugging at her mouth. Your place sounds like a dream, strange but beautiful. Here our ways are old, and they've kept us alive. Her words linger, leaving you stranded between admiration and alienation. Your values, coarse fairness, feel like foreign coins, useless in this market. You ache for the ease of your own time, where you're not an oddity. As the day stretches on, the villagers' rituals pull you further out of your depth. They light incense, chant prayers, offerings laid out to soothe the spirits they blame for the flood. You stand apart, your rational mind spinning. When a tremor rumbles through, a faint echo of an earlier quake, they drop to their knees, voices rising in unison. You freeze, instinct screaming to find cover check for cracks. But here, it's all faith, no action. When the ground stills, you seek out Liang, the village leader, his presence calm and commanding. Shouldn't we brace for more, you ask, urgency creeping in. Strengthen the huts, maybe move somewhere safer. He looks at you, his expression gentle but firm, like a parent with a wayward child. The spirits stir. We honor them with respect, not resistance. Trust keeps us safe. You choke down your exasperation. Your ideas, grounded in science, in cause and effect, are dismissed as faithlessness. The gap between you yawns wider, and you wonder if it's even bridgeable. You're not just battling nature. You're wrestling with a worldview that feels ancient and immovable. Then there's the hierarchy. Every word, every gesture bends to age and rank. Elders command deference. Ling's voice carries the weight of law. You're at the bottom, a newcomer with no standing, and it grates. In your world, respect comes from merit, not years. When you forget yourself and speak plainly, the stares are cold, the reprimands quick. Know your place, a woman snaps, and you clench your fists, searching for a place that fits. The villagers' unity is another riddle. They act as one needs shared, like breath. Food is divided without debate. Labor pools into a single stream. You see the beauty in it, but it clashes with your core. You're wired for independence, for carving your own path. When you tuck away a scrap of bread habit precaution, you feel their eyes. We live as one or we fall, Liang says later, his tone soft but unyielding. You nod, but inside, you crave the freedom to choose. Night falls, and you join them by the fire, its glow dancing on weathered faces. They tell tales of floods, past of spirits, and ancestors, their voices rich with reverence. You listen, straining to connect, but your mind drifts to your own world data, reason a flood explained by weather patterns, not wrath. The divide cuts deep, yet their solidarity, their faith stirs something in you. It's a knot of frustration and faint respect, tangled and unresolved. You retreat to your hut, thoughts swirling like the river's current. These differences aren't just obstacles. They're a mirror reflecting how far you've strayed from home. Sleep comes fitfully, dreams haunted by a life where you're not the stranger. But dawn looms, and with it, whispers of the village's legal system, a maze of old laws, strict and unforgiving. You've survived the flood, the quake, but this could break you in ways the elements never could. Justice here is a blade, not a scale, and you dread its edge. You wake to the clang of a distant gong, its echo rolling through the village like a warning. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of incense and the murmur of early risers. You sit up your straw mat, rustling beneath you, and rub the sleep from your eyes. Today, you have to face the village's legal systema maze of rigid laws and punishments that make your stomach churn. The rules here are not like the ones you know. They're harsher, swifter, and unforgiving. One wrong step, and you could find yourself on the wrong side of a bamboo rod or worse. In this world, the law is a blend of Confucian ideals and legalist severity. Confucianism preaches harmony and virtue, but here it's twisted into a tool for control, enforcing obedience through fear. Legalism, with its brutal efficiency, ensures that order is maintained at all costs. The laws cover everything from theft to disrespecting elders, and the punishments are designed to deter, not rehabilitate. You've heard the stories: public floggings, exile to the barren frontiers, executions that leave no room for mercy. The thought of it makes your skin crawl. You dress quickly, pulling on your rough tunic, and step outside. The village is already stirring, but there's a tension in the air, a hushed caution that hangs over every conversation. People move with purpose, their eyes darting, as if they're always half expecting to be watched. You make your way to the town square, where the magistrate holds court, dispensing justice with a stern hand. You've decided to observe to understand this system better, but even from a distance, the weight of it presses on you. The square is a stark open space dominated by a raised platform where the magistrate sits his robes billowing like dark wings. Before him, a man kneels, hands bound, his face pale with terror. The crowd is silent, their breaths held as the charges are read aloud: theft of a neighbor's grain. The evidence is simple: a witness, a missing sack, but the man's pleas of innocence fall on deaf ears. The verdict comes swiftly: 50 strokes with the bamboo rod. You watch, heart pounding, as the punishment is carried out. The man is stripped to the waist, tied to a wooden post, and the executioner steps forward, rod in hand. Each strike lands with a sickening thud, the man's cries piercing the air. The crowd doesn't flinch. They've seen this before, perhaps too many times. You, however, feel bile rise in your throat. This is justice here, raw, public, and brutal. You think of your own time, where trials drag on for months, where lawyers argue over technicalities. Here, it's over in minutes, the lesson clear: obey or suffer. But the law's reach extends beyond the square. It seeps into every corner of life, shaping how people speak, act, even think. Disrespecting an elder can earn you a beating. Failing to pay taxes might cost you your land. And then there's the concept of collective punishment. If one person in your family breaks the law, everyone pays. It's a system designed to keep everyone in line, to make sure that fear trickles down from the top to the bottom. You recall a conversation with Liang, the village leader, who explained it with a calm that chilled you. Order is everything, he said. Without it, we are nothing. To him, the law is a necessary evil, a way to hold the fragile threads of society together. But to you, it feels like a cage, each bar forged from tradition and fear. As you wander the village, you see the law's shadow everywhere. A merchant weighs his goods with extra care, knowing that cheating customers could cost him his hands. A young woman averts her eyes when a man passes aware that immodesty could bring shame and punishment on her family. Even the children play quietly, their laughter muted as if they've already learned to tiptoe through this world. The hierarchy is rigid, the rules unbending. The emperor sits at the top, his word absolute, followed by noble scholars, and then the commoners, like you. Each class has its place, and the law ensures no one steps out of line. A commoner who insults a noble faces harsher penalties than a noble who strikes a peasant. It's a system that protects the powerful and keeps the weak in check. You bristle at the unfairness, but here fairness is a luxury few can afford. You decide to visit the local jail, a grim building on the village's edge. The air inside is thick with the stench of sweat and despair. Prisoners huddle in dark corners, their faces gaunt, their spirits broken. Some are thieves, others debtors, a few accused of treason. Their fates hang in the balance: exile, mutilation, or death. You shudder imagining yourself in their place and hurry back into the sunlight. The law's brutality isn't just physical, it's psychological. The fear of punishment shapes behavior, stifles dissent, and breeds a culture of silence. You've tried to speak up, to question the system, but each time you're met with wary glances or outright hostility. Know your place, they say, and you're starting to understand what that means. Here, survival depends on conformity, on blending in, not standing out. But you're not built for this. Your modern mind rebels against the injustice, the lack of due process, the absence of mercy. You miss the protections of your own time, innocent until proven guilty, the right to a fair trial, the chance for redemption. Here guilt is assumed and punishment is swift. It's a world where the law is a hammer, not a shield. As the day wears on, you find yourself in the marketplace where the law's influence is subtle but pervasive. Merchants haggle over prices, but their voices are low, their gestures careful. A dispute over a broken contract could end in a public flogging, so they tread lightly. You watch as a buyer and seller shake hands, sealing a deal with a nod, their trust in each other, fragile but necessary. The law here is a double-edged sword. It enforces order, but also stifles growth, making every transaction a dance on a knife's edge. You think of your own world, where contracts are pages long, lawyers argue over clauses, and courts settle disputes with paperwork, not pain. It's not perfect, but it's predictable, safe. Here, the law is a wild thing, unpredictable and dangerous, and you're just trying to stay out of its way. Night falls, and you retreat to your hut, the day's weight settling on your shoulders. The legal system here is a beast you don't understand, a force you can't fight. You've survived another day, but the fear lingers, a constant companion. You know that one misstep, one careless word, could bring the law's wrath down on you. It's a sobering thought, and as you lie down, you wonder how long you can keep tiptoeing through this minefield. But the law is just one piece of the puzzle. Beyond it lies the economic grinda world of bartering, farming, and scraping by, in a cashless society where every coin, every grain is hard-won. You've seen the marketplace, the careful exchanges, the quiet desperation in every deal. It's a tough life, and you're about to learn just how tough. As you drift into sleep, you brace yourself for the next challenge, surviving in an economy that's as unforgiving as the laws that govern it. You wake before dawn, the air biting with the chill of early morning. The straw mat beneath you is a poor excuse for a bed, and your muscles groan as you sit up still sore from yesterday's labor. The village lies silent under a shroud of darkness, save for the faint crow of a rooster piercing the stillness. No coffee awaits to coax you awake, no electric lights to banish the gloom, just a cold hearth and the looming promise of another exhausting day. You pull on your coarse tunic, its fabric patched and fraying, and step outside. The earthy scent of damp soil and livestock fills your lungs, a gritty reminder that here, every sunrise demands your sweat. Your morning begins in the fields, the heartbeat of your existence. The small plot you tend is both your lifeline and your burden. Armed with a wooden hoet's handle smoothed by years of calloused hands, you trudge through the dew-soaked grass. The soil resists clumping around the blade as you dig each swing a test of endurance. No tractors hum in the distance, no sprinklers hum to life, just you and the raw earth locked in a daily struggle. You sow millet and barley crops that might sustain you through the lean months if the weather holds and the pests keep their distance. But that's a fragile hope. You've seen drought parch the land into dust, or swarms of locusts devour it whole, leaving nothing but despair. Today, a gray sky looms overhead, heavy with the tease of rain that falls only as a faint mist. You labor through the hours, your hands blistering your tunic, clinging with sweat. The sun rises, its heat seeping into your bones, and you pause, leaning on your hoe, to survey the endless rows ahead. In another life, you'd be sipping a latte, checking emails, maybe daydreaming about a vacation. Here, your only destination is the market where you'll trade your meager harvest for the scraps you need to scrape by. The market bursts with life, a chaotic symphony of shouts, clucks, and clattering goods. Stalls sprawl across the dirt square, piled with grain sacks, rough cloth, clay jars, and strings of dried fish. The air buzzes with the tang of spices and the musk of crowded bodies. You grip a small sack of millet, your hard-earned currency, and weave through the throng, eyes sharp for a decent deal. Bartering here is a game of wits, a verbal sparring match, and you're still a novice facing seasoned players. You stop at a stall where a merchant displays iron tools, their gleam a rarity in this village. Your sickle is dull, barely slicing through stalks, and you need a replacement. But iron is king, and the merchant knows it. He sizes up your millet with a sly grin, fingers tapping the counter. Not enough. He draws his tone, dripping with mock pity. Hard times, you know. 2 sacks, maybe 3, and well talk. You grit your teeth, frustration simmering. Back home, you'd compare prices online, swipe a card, and be done. Here, you're outmatched. You push back, voice sharp, but he just shrugs, unyielding. You leave empty-handed, the sting of defeat heavier than your sack. Next, you eye a cloth merchant, her stall draped with coarse wool. Your tunic's thin patches let the wind bite through, and winter's shadow looms. She inspects your millet, her gaze shrewd beneath a gentle smile. Too little, she says, shaking her head. But ill trade for labor 3 days, weaving with me. Your stomach twists. The fields demand every hour you have, yet the cold demands cloth. You nod, sealing the deal, though it feels like trading one burden for another. The market is a relentless teacher. Nothing comes free, and every gain costs something, grain time or pride. As you trudge away, your load lighter, but your spirit heavier, you pass a knot of villagers near a weathered shrine. Their voices murmur low hands, pressed together, faces tight with worry. You catch fragments begging for rain, for bounty, for mercy from unseen powers. Here, the economy isn't just goods and labor. It's tangled with the divine, a web of faith you barely grasp. You've never prayed for groceries, but in this world, survival leans on forces beyond your control. Back in the fields, the afternoon drags on your mind, churning with the day's toll. This cashless life is a beast, unpredictable, unyielding, a cycle of work and want. There's no savings account to dip into, no loans to bridge the gap. One failed harvest could unravel everything, and the fear gnaws at you, a quiet companion as you hack at the soil. You lie awake at night, staring at the thatched roof, marveling at how anyone endures this grind year after year. Yet they do. You see it in the village's quiet strength, the way a neighbor shares a handful of grain when your stores run low, or how hands join to rebuild a storm-toppled barn. There's a bond here, a shared fight against the odds that you've never known. It's comforting in its way, but also confining. Your modern instincts scream for freedom, for a life untethered to the collective. Here, your survival hinges on theirs, a chain you can't break. Night falls, and you sit by a flickering fire, cradling a bowl of watery porridge. The flames dance, casting shadows, and you exhale, weary to your core. You've made it through another day, but this economy presses down like a stone. You think of supermarkets, ATMs, the effortless hum of your old life, distant now, like a half-remembered dream. There's no escape, only the next dawn, the next barter, the next row to hoe. And then there's what's coming. You've noticed the villagers' rituals, the offerings left at shrines, the chants rising with the smoke. Faith here isn't separate from the fields or the market. It's woven into them, a lifeline to gods who might tip the scales. You're a stranger to this, unsure how to plead with spirits for rain or mercy. But you'll have to learn, because in this world, belief is as vital as the millet in your sack, and just as hard won. You wake to the distant chime of temple bells, their echo rolling through the village like a call to prayer. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of incense and the murmur of early risers. You sit up your straw mat, rustling beneath you, and rub the sleep from your eyes. Today, you're determined to unravel the religious tapestry of this world, a blend of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism that feels as intricate as it is baffling. These beliefs aren't just abstract philosophies. They're woven into the fabric of daily life, shaping everything from family dynamics to the way people greet the dawn. You dress quickly, pulling on your rough tunic, and step outside. The village is already stirring, but there's a serenity in the air, a quiet reverence that hangs over every action. People move with purpose, their faces calm, yet focused, as if each step is a small act of devotion. You make your way to the town square, where the day's rituals are already underway. The square is a microcosm of the village's spiritual life. A Confucian scholar recites ancient texts to a group of attentive students. A Taoist priest performs a ritual with a fluttering banner, and a Buddhist monk sits in silent meditation beneath a gnarled tree. The air buzzes with the mingling scents of sandalwood and jasmine, the hum of chants, and the rustle of silk robes. Confucianism, the moral foundation. You approach the Confucian scholar, first drawn by the rhythmic cadence of his voice. As an older man, his beard, long and wispy, his eyes sharp beneath a scholar's cap. He is reading from a scroll, his students repeating each line in unison. The master said, "To learn, and at due times to repeat what one has learned, is that not after all a pleasure the words are simple, yet they carry a weight that you can't quite grasp." Confucianism, you've learned, is the backbone of this society, a philosophy that emphasizes social harmony, filial piety, and the importance of education. It's not a religion in the way you're used to, with gods and miracles, but a moral framework that governs how people interact. The scholar notices you and beckons you closer. You're the newcomer. He says, his tone warm but authoritative. "Tell me, what do you know of the way?" You stammer, unsure how to respond. "I've heard of it," you say, "but I don't fully understand." He nods as if expecting this. "The way is the path of virtue," he explains. "It's about living in harmony with others, respecting your elders, and striving for moral excellence. It's the foundation of a stable society." He gestures to his students. "These young ones are learning to be good citizens, to serve their families and their emperor." You glance at the students, their faces earnest, their brushes poised over bamboo slips. The imperial examination system, you recall, is the gateway to social mobility, a grueling test that rewards mastery of Confucian texts with government positions. It's a system that prizes rote learning and moral rectitude, but it also feels rigid, stifling. You wonder if there's room for creativity or dissent in this world of strict hierarchies and prescribed roles. The scholars' teachings also mention the mandate of heaven, a divine right that justifies the emperor's rule, provided he governs justly. It's a lofty idea, but you can help but question what happens when the ruler falters. Taoism, the mystical path. Leaving the scholar, you wander toward the Taoist priest, has a striking figure draped in a robe, adorned with mystical symbols, his hair tied in a top knot. He's performing a ritual, waving a banner inscribed with flowing characters, his movements graceful yet purposeful. Taoism, you've gathered, is a more mystical path focused on living in harmony with the Tao, or the Waya cosmic force that flows through all things. It's about simplicity, spontaneity, and embracing the natural world. The priest catches your eye and smiles, a twinkle of mischief in his gaze. You look lost. He says, his voice light, "Perhaps you're seeking the Tao." You nod, intrigued. "What is the Tao?" you ask. He laughs, a sound like wind through bamboo. "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao," he replies, quoting the Tao Te Ching. "It's the source of all things, the rhythm of the universe. To follow it is to live in balance, to let go of striving and simply be." You watch as he performs a series of fluid gestures, his banner tracing patterns in the air. "We seek immortality," he explains, "not just of the body, but of the spirit. Through meditation, alchemy, and living in tune with nature, we can transcend the mundane." His words are poetic, yet they leave you puzzled. Immortality, alchemy. It sounds like magic, and you're not sure how it fits into the practical world of farming and bartering you've been struggling with. Still, there's an allure to his calm demeanor, a promise of peace that contrasts with the scholar's rigid structure. Buddhism, the path to enlightenment. Finally, you approach the Buddhist monk who sits cross-legged beneath the tree, his eyes closed in meditation. His shaved head gleams in the morning light, and his saffron robes drape elegantly over his still form. Buddhism, you know, came to China from India, bringing with it the concepts of karma, reincarnation, and the path to enlightenment. It's a religion of compassion and detachment, offering a way to escape the cycle of suffering. You sit beside him, unsure whether to speak. After a moment, he opens his eyes and smiles gently. You carry many questions. He says, his voice soft. What troubles you? You hesitate, then ask, how do you find peace in a world so full of hardship? He nods, as if expecting this. Peace comes from within, he replies. By letting go of desire, by understanding the impermanence of all things, we can find true freedom. His words resonate, yet they also feel distant. You've been fighting to survive, to make sense of this world, and the idea of letting go seems impossible. But how do you live without wanting, you ask? Without striving, he chuckles, a sound of quiet wisdom. It's not about not wanting, he says. It's about wanting wisely. Compassion, mindfulness, the middle way, these are the keys. You notice the monasteries in the distant centers of learning and charity, and realize Buddhism offers not just philosophy, but tangible support for the community. A blended tapestry. You sit in silence for a while, watching the villagers go about their day. Some bow before a Confucian altar, others leave offerings at a Taoist shrine, and a few join the monk in meditation. It dawns on you that these beliefs aren't separate paths, but a blended tapestry, each thread strengthening the whole. Confucianism provides the moral code, Taoism the spiritual depth, and Buddhism the promise of transcendence. Together, they form a worldview that sustains this society, giving meaning to the cycles of life and death. Yet as an outsider, you feel both fascinated and overwhelmed. Your modern mind craves clarity, a single truth to hold on to. But here, truth is fluid, layered, and often contradictory. The villagers blend these traditions effortlessly, praying to ancestors with Confucian reverence, seeking Taoist harmony in their fields, and chanting Buddhist sutras for the afterlife. It's a public spectacle, unlike the private faith of your own time, and the constant rituals leave you dizzy with their complexity. Connecting to art and literature. As the sun dips low, you wander to the village temple, its walls adorned with colorful banners and statues. Inside, the air is thick with incense candlelight, flickering over altars where villagers kneel in prayer. You see Confucian texts clutched in hands, Taoist charms dangling from belts, and Buddhist beads clicking softly. It's a scene of devotion, but it also sparks a new curiosity. The art on the temple wall, intricate paintings of mountains and deities, the poetry recited in the square, the music drifting from a FEUDAL hint at a deeper connection. These beliefs don't just guide the soul. They inspire the senses, shaping the creative expressions of this world. As you step back into the fading light, you wonder how this spiritual richness fuels the art and literature of feudal China, eager to explore the masterpieces it has birthed. And so, as the sun dips below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the ancient village, you find yourself standing at the edge of a world that has tested your every limit. You've trudged through the rigid class systems, felt the ache of relentless labor, dodged the chaos of political upheaval, and battled diseases with nothing but hope. You've choked down unfamiliar meals, puzzled over strange rituals, and stumbled through dusty texts in a language not your own. The technology gap left you fumbling. The natural disasters shook you to your core, and the cultural norms clashed with everything you thought you knew. You've tiptoed through a legal system as harsh as the land itself, bartered in a cashless economy, and wrestled with beliefs that felt as distant as the stars. Yet through it all, you've endured. You've glimpsed the resilience of those who live this life, not as a story, but as their reality. Now, as the night settles, and the hum of the village fades, and you're left with the quiet of your own thoughts. The journey through feudal China may have been brutal, but it's also been a mirror reflecting not just the past, but the strength you carry within. As you close your eyes, the weight of the day lifts, and you drift into a well-earned rest, knowing that history, with all its trials, has made you wiser. The lessons of this world linger whispering that survival is not just about enduring, but understanding. And with that, you let the soft embrace of sleep take you the distant echo of temple bells fading into the night. Sweet dreams.